By 48 hours after my graduation ceremony, my brother was in a police interview room, and my father was learning that the truth can be louder than his voice. I am 32. My name is Madison Blake. I run marketing at a New York fintech, the kind of job where launches are choreographed down to the minute, and my compensation sits in the high six figures. I thought I understood betrayal. I grew up with it. But I had never watched it put on a suit, walk down an aisle, and swing on a stage. What they did not know was simple. The same instinct I use to ship products on time is the instinct I use to build consequences. Timelines, assets, proof, distribution. If you have ever been the responsible one, the quiet one, the person who pays and apologizes and keeps the peace, until the peace starts to cost your spine, tell me where you are watching from. This one is for you. I was born in the Midwest, in a town where reputation felt like currency, and my father acted like the bank. When I was in 10th grade, we moved to Scarsdale for his new job and for a zip code that could be mentioned at dinner parties. The distance from there to Manhattan is short on a map. It has felt like an ocean for years. The family dynamic was textbook. My older brother Jake was the golden child, charismatic, volatile. My father Robert called it being a real man. I was the responsible one. The reliable daughter who finished assignments early, paid her own way, and kept her head down because that was how the house stayed quiet. You already know how that script goes. The person who can carry weight gets handed more of it. The person who explodes gets excuses and a fresh plate. I worked. I studied. I paid for my degrees. I was already a vice president when I enrolled in an executive MBA at Columbia part-time, because New York makes you believe you can do everything if you just schedule it right. I do not say that to brag. I say it so you understand the numbers that come later. I could afford to help. That is the trap. When you can afford it, people tell you it does not cost you anything. And because I am the kind of person who believes in receipts, I kept them. Quietly. A folder of bank statements with neat yellow highlights that I never showed anyone. Memo lines that said little lies like groceries and bridge this please. A screenshot of an extended family group chat my cousin Maya accidentally leaked months ago, where a joke about keeping Jake calm today did not feel like a joke to me. I saved it, not because I had a plan, but because proof is a habit I learned in boardrooms and brought home by accident. I also had a Ring doorbell clip from a relative's front porch in Scarsdale on a night when people spoke more freely than they should. At the time, it was background noise. Later, it would be a headline. I am not a saint in this story. I enabled. I wired money when I should have said no. I covered bills I did not owe because shame is a persuasive salesman when you are the one who got out. I told myself it was temporary and that family would even the ledger when they could. Looking back now, temporary was the lie I told myself, so I would not have to set a boundary. On the morning of the ceremony, I let myself believe we could have one clean day. I left tickets at will call after my mother called, her voice trembling the exact way it does when she has been crying. "We want to be there," she said. "Jake wants to see you walk." I heard my father in the background, pleased in that quiet way he gets when the room will revolve around him. I pressed yes on a moment that deserved a no because some small part of me still wanted witnesses to our good side. The arena felt like a cathedral, all brass and banners and the smell of coffee from the concession stands. I remember sunlight turning dust in the rafters into glitter. I also remember the text from my colleague Evan, who had come to cheer me on. "I see your father whispering. Jake keeps checking the aisle." Could be nothing. It did not feel like nothing. I kept walking anyway. That is what the responsible one does. You keep walking. You keep smiling. You keep believing that public makes people behave. What happened next you will see clearly because the microphones were live and the cameras were many. But before we go there, hear this. I am telling this story calmly. I am not here to scream. I am here to lay out a system. A sacrifice pattern that turned into exploitation. A betrayal that became public. An awakening that turned into a plan. And a plan that worked because it was built the way I build anything I want to last. I am Madison. I live in Tribeca. My family lives in Scarsdale. We came from the Midwest a long time ago. I run teams. I run launches. And when a man I grew up with decided to turn my graduation into a stage for dominance, I did what I do best. I gathered the data. I wrote the timeline. I pressed go. Stay with me. In a moment, you will see the punch, you will hear the sentence, and you will understand why the first thing I did after I stood up was not to rage. It was to make a record. I did not wake up one morning and decide to bankroll a family. It happened the way rust spreads. Quiet, predictable, avoidable only if you are willing to sand down what everyone else calls love. We left the Midwest when I was in 10th grade and landed in Scarsdale because my father got a new job and wanted a zip code that sounded good in a sentence. The house was bigger. The rules did not change. Jake was still the golden child. I was still the reliable one. He broke things and got a shrug. I fixed things and got a nod that felt like a receipt, not affection. Looking back now, the earliest payments were not money. They were apologies I did not owe. He slammed doors and I smoothed it over with teachers. He ran late and I made excuses to coaches. My father called it being a team player. I called it survival. You keep the peace because the alternative is an explosion in the kitchen that lasts all night. When I moved to the city, I took the ethic with me. I worked, I studied. I was already a vice president when I enrolled in an executive MBA at Columbia part-time because nights and weekends are cheaper than giving up on what you want. The program sharpened how I think about systems. It did not soften what I felt when my phone lit up with a familiar ask. It started small. Can you cover this utility until next month? Can you spot the difference on a repair? Then it became a plan I did not consent to, but participated in anyway. $8,500 every month, for 30 months. $255,000 in total sent by Zelle or Venmo, always with a memo line that tried to redefine reality. Groceries, rent. Bridge this, please. I had the salary to do it, so the family story said I should. There were extra hits, too. $42,000 to make a court thing go away after my brother called it a misunderstanding. $18,700 for a medical bill my father said he would reimburse when a bonus cleared. The bonus never arrived. My reimbursement did not either. Added up and the total sits around $316,000 over 2 to 3 years. I could afford it. That sentence is true and dangerous. Because once you can afford to help people act like it costs you nothing, it costs you your spine if you are not careful. Looking back now, I see the breadcrumbs I was dropping for myself. I saved every confirmation email and screenshot. I exported monthly statements and highlighted transfers in yellow. I kept originals, not just photos, because the boardroom trained me to think about source files and integrity. I did not call it evidence. I called it organization. Same habit, different purpose, waiting on the other side. The Thanksgiving. Before all of this blew open, Jake cornered me by the stove and said he needed $500 to fix his truck. I said no because I was done handing him my yes. He shoulder-checked me hard enough to bloom a bruise. My father told me later that family helps family. I heard the subtext clearly. Family helps Jake. Family tolerates Madison. We ate pie in quiet like an apology. There were smaller things that should not feel small. He once rifled my bag and said he was looking for gum. $50 disappeared. I swallowed it because the fight felt more expensive than the cash. He used my apartment like a hotel and left beer cans in the sink like a review. I cleaned and kept going because I had a presentation in the morning and a body that had learned to prioritize deliverables over dignity. Looking back now, I see how the money turned into structure. I put the family phone plan on my card because it was simpler. I told myself I would unwind it when things calmed down. Things did not calm down. I added Jake as an authorized user on a credit card once because I convinced myself training wheels might save the bike. I told the bank to cap his limit, and then I pretended that a cap would create a conscience. It did not. I told myself I was preventing worse behavior. That is how enabling dresses up when it wants to look responsible. The worst decision wore leather and a logo. My company had a flashy brand partnership that allowed my LLC to hold a Porsche as a marketing asset. It was a messy idea I should have vetoed. I let my brother drive it as an authorized user, thinking maybe pride would make him careful. I am not naive about contracts. I had the paperwork. The title sat with the LLC. The privilege sat with him. That choice felt like control until it didn't. There is something corrosive about being the one who always says yes. People begin to treat your yes as a utility. Flip a switch, Madison will light the room. Flip another switch, Madison will heat the house. They do not ask what it costs the grid. They only notice when the lights go out. Callie moved in with me a year before the ceremony. She is the kind of friend who notices your habits and asks better questions than "How was your day?" She saw me forwarding screenshots of payments to a folder and joked that my Dropbox was more organized than our spice drawer. I shrugged and called it work brain leaking into life. She did not push. She bought labels for the spice jars. That is how real anchors behave. They do not shame you for coping. They hand you a stronger rope and wait. Looking back now, there were also moments that told me who might stand with me if I ever stopped funding the quiet. My colleague Evan works in legal. He once slid a template across a table during a lunch and learn and said documentation is not paranoia, it is clarity. He was not talking to me. He was talking to the room. I heard it like a permission slip to keep good files. That line would matter later when calm started to sound like power. My mother, Linda, tried to keep the center from spinning by baking sugar into all the sharp edges. She is not a villain in this. She is a woman who survived a man who enjoys control by avoiding any weather that looks like conflict. She called me when she needed help and apologized with pies when she knew she should have called him instead. I wish she had been braver. I also know bravery is expensive in houses like ours. So when the invitation email from Colombia hit my inbox, I told myself one perfect day could coexist with a broken system. I did not put my parents on the original list because my stomach tightened when I pictured them in a room full of microphones. 2 weeks out, my mother called. "We want to be there. Jake wants to see you walk." I heard my father in the background, that satisfied hum that says the stage is set and all he has to do is sit in the front row. I said I would leave tickets at will call. I said it because I wanted a witness to our good side. I said it because I wanted to believe a crowd makes people behave. Looking back now, that was hope arguing with data. The data said patterns repeat at milestones. Birthdays, holidays, graduations. The bigger the moment, the bigger the demand. The ask might be money, the ask might be attention, the ask might be power. Either way, the currency changes hands. 2 nights before the ceremony, my phone buzzed with the extended family group chat. Cousin Maya posted a photo of my gown and typed something breezy about how we should all help keep Jake calm today. There were laugh reactions. I took a screenshot and archived it. Chain of custody is not just for prosecutors. It is for people who are tired of having their memory questioned. I kept the original on my phone and synced the backup to the cloud where timestamps do not forget. On the morning of the ceremony, I had 3 thoughts in rotation. Walk like you practiced. Smile for your mother's sake. And if anything goes sideways, do not argue. Document. That is the difference between a story that gets twisted in a living room and a truth that stands up in a courtroom. One depends on volume. The other depends on receipts. The sacrifice pattern was complete long before the band tuned their instruments. Years of transfers, years of apologies, years of management by silence. I am laying it out for you now so that when the camera pans later and the audio catches the sentence, "No daughter should ever hear," you will not think this was about one punch. You will know it was a system meeting a boundary for the first time. And systems do not like boundaries. The arena felt choreographed until the second it didn't. Brass swelling, names rolling, the floor crew waving rows forward like traffic. I kept my smile where it belonged and my heartbeat where it couldn't be seen. Then I saw Jake rise from the family section as if someone had cued him, shoulders squared, eyes locked. The aisle opening like it owed him space. An usher reached for his sleeve. He slipped past with that cocky half-turn I knew too well. Another usher stepped in at the stairs. He angled his body, kept moving, never breaking eye contact. I took the diploma folder because stopping would make me pray. The dean's hand was still warm from the last shake when the lights found the hard white of my brother's knuckles. The hit landed with a crack that the microphone gifted to every ear in the building. My head whipped sideways, my cap flew. The folder jabbed my ribs as the stage rushed up to meet me. There was the tin taste of blood and the more human taste of humiliation. The band stuttered, then stopped. Hundreds of phones rose in the same motion as if the room were breathing in. Shined shoes appeared in the edge of my vision. My father. He knelt, and for one foolish heartbeat I thought he would help me up. He leaned in instead. The podium mic caught every syllable. "You deserved it." The noise that followed was not noise, it was judgment. A professor crouched and pressed a handkerchief to my lip. Security poured onto the stage. Jake wiped his knuckles on his suit like this was a bar story, not a felony broadcast. My father stared down the guards as if daring them to do their jobs. Somewhere in the first rows, a woman said, "Record this," and an entire generation obeyed. Breadcrumb 1. Callie was in the aisle with her phone already up. Her angle caught the moment Jake left his seat, the missed grab by the first usher, the punch, and my father's sentence bright as a bell. She did not stop recording when security stepped in. She moved closer. Her audio was clean. That will matter later. Breadcrumb 2. Evan, my colleague from legal, texted, "I am here." He described what he saw from his section. He noted timing. He noted positions. He wrote ushers attempted to intervene, force used by Jake. He is not dramatic. He is precise. Screenshots of his messages are now part of a court file. At the time, they were an anchor I could hold in one hand. I stood up because I refused to let them caption me with the word victim while I was still on the floor. I told the professor I was fine, even though my voice didn't agree. I walked off on my own, not because I wanted to be brave, but because I needed to decide what story this would be. Not a scandal, a record. In the medical room, the fluorescent lights made everything look too honest. A nurse cleaned my split lip and asked if I wanted a hospital. "Not yet," I said, because I'm not leaving through a side door like the problem. She handed me printed instructions for head injuries and told me to watch for dizziness. I signed the form with a hand that wasn't shaking. Then I took out my phone and started saving links as messages and clips poured in. Breadcrumb 3. A parent in the front row airdropped a video to Callie. Different angle, better podium audio. You can hear the gasping silence after my father's words, the kind of silence that makes juries sit up. We uploaded it to a shared drive and preserved the original on the device. Originals are gold, copies are cheap. Chain of custody begins the second you hit save. Breadcrumb 4. A friend of a friend in the balcony posted a story with a wide shot. You can see Jake stand. You can see the aisle part. You can see ushers try. You can see the punch travel through the room like weather. I messaged her and asked for the original file. She sent it. I downloaded, I duplicated. I wrote down the exact time and the source in a notes app, then emailed myself the note so a server would timestamp it too. This sounds obsessive. It is called being accountable to your own facts. I walked back into the arena because I was not going to be erased from my own graduation. The ceremony limped on. The band played a safer song. People stared and then remembered their manners. I kept my head high so the cameras could see my face and the bruise that was already lifting under the skin. Evidence is not only documents, it is also the image of a person who refuses to hide. Outside, the sun made the asphalt sparkle. I saw my family near the parking lot, my father's arms folded in that performance of control he mistakes for dignity, Jake leaning on a railing as if he had won something, my mother twisting her purse strap until color left her fingers. I did not go to them. I went to my friends. We took photos next to a banner because that image would get searched later, and I wanted the record to show honors cords, a swollen cheek, and a person who kept standing. Breadcrumb 5. My phone pinged with a text from Maya, the cousin who sometimes forgets that screenshots live forever. "Are you okay? Then I think the family chat is getting ugly. Do you want me to send you something?" I typed yes. I put the phone face down without looking because I needed 1 hour where I did not put fresh acid in my throat. Back at my apartment, Callie plugged our phones into chargers and opened a new folder on my drive. We labeled it with the date and a neutral title because names can bias reviewers. We uploaded every clip, then ran a quick check to make sure each file's metadata traveled with it. We took stills from the videos and stored those separately with matching time codes. Redundancy is boring until a file corrupts, then redundancy is genius. I opened my bank app and scrolled the transfer history not to punish myself but to prepare the ground. 8,500. Again, and again, and again. 30 months of that number as if it were rent on someone else's life. I exported the statements. I highlighted each transfer and printed the pages like I was prepping a board packet because in a way I was. A jury is a board that gets to decide your future. They deserve neat tabs. Breadcrumb 6. Evan came by with his laptop and a tone that said, "We are going to do this the right way." He drafted a timeline with times down to the minute. He added witness names where we had them and placeholders where we would. He wrote video one shows impact and father's statement recorded by podium microphone quality high. He wrote Usher's attempted intervention twice. He wrote victim stood and exited under own power. He insisted on the word victim now because it matters later. It is a legal term. It is not an identity. I let him have it on the page so I could refuse it in my mouth. Callie pulled up a cloud account for a relative's Ring doorbell, the one I had access to because I sometimes helped that aunt with her tech. She said you should check this after people get back from the ceremony. It felt like a long shot. It wasn't. We did not watch it yet. We noted the access. We scheduled it for later. That restraint is a muscle I did not know I had until I needed it. The dean emailed a neutral statement about the incident and the school's cooperation with authorities. I replied with a professional thank you and asked for a copy of the stage audio from the podium microphone. He looped in event staff. They said they would preserve the file. I asked them to send it directly to the officer once I had a case number. Always copy the process you want to see. Breadcrumb 7. A stranger wrote to my public email address with a link to a post where the video had already been shared thousands of times. I did not read the comments because rage is a terrible Sherpa. I saved the link for context, not validation. I also wrote a short account of the moment while it was still sharp. What he did, what my father said, what happened next. Just facts. No adjectives I could not defend. The sun slid behind buildings. My cheeks swelled. The adrenaline left and the ache arrived. That is when I let Callie drive me to urgent care. I needed documentation, not drama. They did an exam. They ordered an X-ray to check my cheekbone. They took pictures of the swelling and the split lip. I asked for printed copies of everything and a digital copy sent to my email. I paid the bill with my own card because I wanted a receipt with my name on it and today's date. Medical reports are not a plot device, they are proof. On the way home, my phone buzzed again. Maya had sent screenshots from the family group chat. Earlier that morning, my father had written, "Make sure he learns a lesson today." Someone reacted with a laugh. Someone else replied, "Say it to her face." There it was. Not rumor, not interpretation. Words, written, shared, preserved. I forwarded the email to the new evidence folder and then backed up the folder again. I opened my laptop and wrote one more line under the timeline Evan had started. Pattern confirmed. Prior planning suggested. This is not an accident. Then I closed the screen and sat in the kind of quiet that happens after a storm when you can finally hear yourself think. Here is the only promise I will make. What they meant for humiliation became a record. What they tried to keep in our house stepped into the light on its own. And by the end of that first night, I knew exactly what to do next. Not yell, not negotiate, document report, and build the consequences, one clean step at a time. When the adrenaline thinned, clarity took its place. Calm does not mean nothing happened. Calm means I am finally in charge of what happens next. We started with the files. Callie and I ran through each clip like auditors, not rubberneckers. We labeled sources. We noted timestamps. We kept originals on the devices, then mirrored them to a cloud drive with version history. Evan brought over a simple integrity check he uses at work. We generated hash values for the key videos and saved those strings in a text file with the date and time. It sounds cold. It is dignity in a different dialect. Then the first echo arrived. Event staff confirmed by email that the podium microphone audio had been preserved. Evan drafted a short, clean request to route the file to the officer who would take my report. He also prepared a Freedom of Information request as a backup. Belt and suspenders. If you have ever had your truth dismissed as dramatic, you learn to prefer redundant systems. The ring. Doorbell clip came next. Not mine, a relative's, Scarsdale porch. Early evening of the ceremony. The video opened on a slice of walkway and the corner of a flower pot. Then voices. Jake bragging. A laugh that was not his. A second later, two little nieces wandered into the frame and were gently nudged back inside when the adults remembered children learn by listening. My father's voice followed lower but clear. Some people only respect force. It was not a confession. It was context. It took the moment on stage and threaded it into a pattern. Layer 1. The surface betrayal. My brother hit me in front of an arena. The microphone captured my father's sentence. The videos prove it beyond debate. That is what happened. Layer 2. The deeper conspiracy. The family chat from that morning said, "Make sure he learns a lesson." Someone reacted with a laugh. Someone else wrote, "Say it to her face." After the ceremony, the porch conversation kept the same energy. Not shock, not remorse, just men congratulating themselves for teaching a woman her place. That is who was involved. Layer 3. Pattern recognition. This was not an isolated storm. It was a weather system I had been living in since childhood. The shove on the stairs when I was 10 and told not to be dramatic. The Thanksgiving shoulder check that bloomed purple while pies cooled on the counter. The missing $50 described as confusion. All of it part of the same script. That is how long it had been rehearsed. The sensory memory hit me while I watched the files play back to back. The metallic tang still in my mouth. The way the lights turned phone lenses into small suns. The band trying and failing to hold a major key while hundreds of people forgot how to breathe. Outside, the sky had been a bright, careless blue, the kind of blue that asks nothing of you. That is when I felt the pivot. If the sky would not hold me, I would hold me. I wrote a statement of facts, times, angles, actions. I included the urgent care visit from that night, the x-ray ordered to check my cheekbone, and the doctor's note about swelling. I saved the PDFs with their original file names so the metadata stayed clean. No adjectives I could not defend. No speculation I could not source. Truth ages well on paper. We organized the money next. 30 months of $8,500. Transfers labeled groceries and rent to an address I did not live at. Side payments of $42,000 and $18,700. A total landing around $316,000 in roughly 2 to 3 years. I highlighted each line and added a short note in the margin. Who asked? Why they said they needed it. Whether there was any repayment. The page looked like a map of a city I never meant to build. Callie put together a visual timeline on my television. On the left, the childhood patterns we could verify. In the middle, the last few years of transfers and favors. On the right, the day of the ceremony broken into minutes. Rows for video, audio, witness messages, medical documentation, and school coordination. It looked like a launch war room. It also looked like the truth at scale. Evan kept us inside the guardrails. He reminded me that what I hoped for and what I could prove were different lanes. He marked each item with a label: undisputed, corroborated, needs witness. He suggested 2 immediate steps for the morning: file a police report with the evidence packet, meet a criminal attorney to discuss an order of protection and the likely charges for Jake. As for my father, he was careful with the words. He said the district attorney might consider harassment or solicitation based on the messages and the microphone audio. He did not overpromise. I appreciated that. Precision is its own kind of compassion. I took a breath and looked at the room. The freeze frame on the screen showed my brother's fist a hair from my face. The stack of bank statements glowed under a lamp like a stack of uncashed apologies. The doctor's packet sat beside them, ordinary and undeniable. In the kitchen, the kettle clicked off. The whole apartment smelled like tea and printer ink and something like relief. This is important. Awakening is not fury. Awakening is the moment you understand that the story you have been handed is a draft and you are allowed to revise. The plan finished itself in my head step by step. Report, then restrain. Gather, then secure. Stop the money pipes. Remove privileges I should never have granted. Reclaim what is legally mine. Communicate only through counsel. No screaming, no bargaining, no second chances disguised as detours. If someone wanted to understand, they could read. Before I slept, I opened Instagram. I posted a short statement with a watermark and turned off comments. I did not name my family in the caption, and I did not tag anyone. My account is my name. That was enough. On LinkedIn, I wrote a longer note about boundaries and accountability in families. Calm, professional, no names. A link to the school's neutral statement to anchor the narrative in something public. Then I set 2 alarms for the morning and laid out a navy suit. Not for show, for focus. I have handled product launches with worse timing than the legal system. I know how to build a day that moves the ball. Tomorrow would be about structure. Police first, attorney next. After that, the practical corrections. End the transfers, remove the authorized user, close the family phone plan and transfer the remaining line to Jake so unpaid bills would be his to manage. Catalog the Venmo payments funded by my card and open disputes. Log the Zelle transfers as evidence, not battlegrounds. Document everything. I turned off the lights. The city kept humming. Somewhere in Scarsdale, a porch camera went dark for the night, already holding a copy of a future exhibit. I slept not because I was done, but because I had a map. When dawn came, we would stop calling this a disaster. We would call it what it was, a record. And a record can carry consequences. Morning came like a checklist. I showered, iced my cheek, put on the navy suit, and slipped the flash drive labeled evidence into my bag. Calm is a choice. I made it again. First, stop the precinct. Evan met me outside with coffee and a brief nod that said, "You are ready." Inside, the officer on duty took us to a small interview room that smelled like disinfectant and old paper. I set the flash drive on the table and slid over a printed index. 15 videos labeled by source and time, transcripts for the clearest clips, screenshots from the extended family chat with the original message headers visible. Urgent care records from last night, including the X-ray order and photographs of swelling. Bank statements with yellow highlights showing the transfers. I explained each item once, then let the files speak. He watched the main angle first. He winced at the impact and exhaled when my father leaned toward the microphone. He played it again. Then he watched the wide shot from the balcony, the front row audio, and Callie's clip. When he finished, he turned the volume down and looked at me like a puzzle that had solved itself. "This is clear assault," he said. "We will open a case and the district attorney's office will reach out." He printed the report, stamped it, and handed me a number that felt like a door. Next, the courthouse. We filed for a temporary order of protection that afternoon. The judge skimmed the police report and the supporting exhibits, then signed a short-term order restricting contact. Not permanent yet. Enough to breathe. Evan leaned close and whispered, "We will seek a 5-year final order at sentencing if they secure a conviction." I nodded. Process has a rhythm. You stop asking for miracles and start asking for the next right thing. Midtown early afternoon. I sat across from a criminal attorney whose calm could put out fires. We reviewed the packet. She laid out the likely path with Jake assault charges supported by video and witness statements arraignment, and a case that would not hinge on my word alone. When we got to my father, she became careful and exact. The messages and the microphone audio could support charges like harassment or solicitation, depending on how the DA reads intent, she said. Aiding and abetting is a phrase people use in conversation, not always the statute that sticks. Precision matters. We will give the DA options and let the evidence guide the title. I liked her immediately. No drama, only lanes and merge points. Back home, I turned off the money machine. Every automatic transfer. Gone. I removed Jake as an authorized user from my credit card because my history is not his parachute. I closed the family phone plan and transferred the remaining line to his name, clean and documented. I paid off my portion so there would be no confusion. If he didn't pay, what was now his, the carrier would send it to collections, and any credit damage would belong to him. That is not revenge. That is math. Then I opened the payment apps. Zelle first. Those transfers are functionally final. I exported the full history because the point is, proof, not recoveries that won't come. Venmo next. Some of those payments had run through my credit card. I filed disputes for the ones that fit the criteria and backed each with context. Over the next weeks, roughly $7,900 came back. Not everything. Enough to make a point to myself I am not asleep at the wheel anymore. The Porsche required a different kind of patience. The car sat under my LLC because of a gaudy brand partnership that now looked like a case study in why you say no to shiny. Jake had driving privileges as an authorized user, not ownership. My attorney filed for replevin. When the order came through, a repo company coordinated with NYPD for a standby. 10 to 14 days after the filing, a flatbed rolled into the private lot where he liked to park. Papers were served. The car went up the ramp. The driver handed me a tow invoice that I slid into the evidence folder with a quiet private exhale. I was not gloating. I was correcting the ledger. That night, I built a deck. Not rage, not gossip, a professional neutral PDF. Slide 1 was a timeline. Slide 2, the videos listed with thumbnails, sources, and timestamps. Slide 3, transcripts of key lines, including the sentence at the microphone. Slide 4, bank transfers summarized by month, with totals that landed around $316,000 over roughly 2 to 3 years. Slide 5, the urgent care documents. Slide 6, the temporary order of protection. Slide 7, next steps defined in one line, all further contact through counsel. I sent the deck to the extended family group chat with 34 people inside. I did not add commentary. I did not tag anyone. I sent a second message with my attorney's email and said kindly, direct all questions there. Then I muted the thread. Some fences you build for your sanity. Some fences you build so other people finally see the property line. I took it to LinkedIn next. I posted about boundaries and accountability in families, no names, no tags, framing documentation as self-respect, and linking the school's neutral statement. It spread fast as people added their own stories, and I muted notifications. Quietly, I sent Jake's employer an ethics tip, public videos, transcripts, and the family chat screenshots with their code of conduct sections on off-duty violence highlighted. In an at-will state, evidence moves quickly. HR watched what everyone else had seen and walked him out. That evening, my father, my mother, and Jake showed up. I kept the chain on and laid out a timeline, statements, and exhibits. When Jake said I was blowing it out of proportion, I told him proportion was exactly the point. When my father said family does not go to court, I said family does not hit on a stage and call it deserved. My mother asked me to take the videos down. I told her accountability, not erasure. I ended it cleanly, we are done. All future contact through counsel. After they left, I sent the podium audio link to the precinct, logged integrity checks for the key videos, and blocked time to keep the process moving. The district attorney filed assault charges against Jake and evaluated harassment-based counts for my father. The temporary order of protection stayed in place with a 5-year final order on the table at sentencing. Without my autopay, his accounts went late on their own. The Porsche was repossessed through Replevin. I kept Instagram to a single statement with comments off and let LinkedIn host a calm conversation. No theatrics, just a plan, proof, and consequences lining up.